Last week in Detroit, Michigan, 10 of the fastest race boats in the world took to the Detroit River for a chance at the APBA Gold Cup. To get the Gold Cup, you must first survive the Detroit River. And when the spray settled, the Spirit of Qatar and driver Kip Brown took the victory, adding his name to one of the oldest motorsports trophies. Today, we head west to Tri-Cities, Washington, next. And we welcome you to the 2013 Lamb Weston Columbia Cup here on the Columbia River, the H1 Unlimited Hydroplane Series. I'm Rich Hollenberg alongside my broadcast partner Steve Montgomery. And last week in Detroit, all eyes were on Jimmy Shane and Steve David as they battled for the Gold Cup. But driver Kip Brown and the entire Spirit of Qatar had plans for the title as well. Kip Brown set himself in lane one, and after Shane and David took each other out of the race, Kip took his first ever Gold Cup win.
You know, we started off with no points for qualifying and a bunch of penalties in the first heat, and we were way down on the points ladder. We were just hurting, and then we got a couple good draws, got enough points to get into the final, got lane one, got some help in the final where the two fastest boats took each other out, and had a barn burner of a race with John Zimmerman in the 9 and ended up in front by just a few boat lengths. Couldn't ask for anything more.
Kip Brown sits in the number 4 position in the national high points, with Steve David in the number 1 spot coming into this weekend. And he also sits as the top qualifier with a speed of 158.766 miles per hour. In Heat 2A, Steve David battled with the number 2 qualifier, John Zimmerman, in the number 9 Miss Red Dot, putting pressure on the number 1 Oh Boy Oberto.
Just wanted to get an idea where we were at acceleration-wise and our timing marks and everything. We knew the 9 was very fast, they qualified second fastest, so we wanted to see what they had. And I think we saw it for a lap, and then he backed down, and we backed down after that.
We're ready now for Heat 2B, and these are the drivers we'll see on the water. Jimmy Shane in the number 5 Graham Trucking, along with Kip Brown and J. Michael Kelly, 3 young and talented drivers.
Just about 15 seconds now to the start of Heat 2B. The field forming up for the run down to start finish. Jimmy Shane on the inside in the red and black 5 Graham Trucking. Kip Brown next to him in the white and maroon Spirit of Qatar. Then it's the orange boat, the 37 Beacon Plumbing. J. Michael Kelly on the outside. A good start for Greg Hopp in the yellow and green Mr. Julio, but he'll be way on the outside. The green boat in lane 4, that's Brian Perkins in the 21. Into the first turn now, and Jimmy Shane already has a lead in the 5 Graham Trucking. In the overhead shot, you can see Kip Brown in lane 2, J. Michael Kelly in lane 3 as they come through the turn with Jimmy Shane. On to the backstretch now. This is a long, fast straightaway. He'll reach a speed over 200 miles per hour as we go on board with Jimmy Shane. And now Kip Brown running second, and you can see Jimmy Shane already has a lead over him. Beautiful boat ride for Jimmy Shane in the 5 Graham Trucking. Out ahead here, half a lap down. Now we're on board with J. Michael Kelly. He's too high. He's going over. We are on board with J. Michael Kelly during a flip. An accident on the backstretch. He got high in the air. The nose came up. You saw him go all the way around and land very hard in the Columbia River. Already the rescue team over to the stricken boat, and J. Michael Kelly being assisted. Now we're back on board during the accident. Watch the front end come up. Now it's too high, trying to get it down with the front wing, and it's too late. He goes up and over. More than a 360, a very, very violent landing. Undoubtedly some damage to that boat. Here's the view Brian Perkins had. Up ahead of him, a 3-ton race boat. High in the air, does more than a 360, landing very, very hard on the transom.
And rescue teams have taken Kelly from the boat and have reported J. Michael is doing fine. Glad to hear that. And we'll be back after this.
H1 Unlimited Hydroplane Series Racing on CBS Sports Network is brought to you by Formula Boats. You've always wanted the best Formula Boats. And by Peters and May Global Boat Transport, the world's leading boat transport provider.
And we welcome you back to the 2013 Lamb Weston Columbia Cup from Tri-Cities, Washington. The Miss Beacon plumbing team is assessing the damage from the blowover in the first lap of Heat 2B. Steve Montgomery caught up with Kelly during the break.
You know, when you're going that fast, and I mean, anytime you're hitting speeds up to 200 miles an hour and take off, you know, and you're just kind of nothing you can do. And I just was hoping that I didn't get hurt. It was one of those ones where I thought I was going to get hurt, and luckily, you know, the capsule did its job, and you know, I'm standing here and I feel pretty good.
And there you see veteran driver Dave Vilwalk giving the team some valuable information on ways to repair the hull. And with Seattle next week, the team has come a long way and still has some long hours ahead. The lineups for the rerun of Heat 2B, -1 team. Jimmy Shane looking to gain some points over Steve David.
Lined up for the restart of Heat 2B, obviously a four-boat field without J. Michael Kelly. That is Greg Hopp coming by out in lane 4. And look at this, Jimmy Shane has the inside. He does not have the lead at the start. Kip Brown was a little ahead of him in lane 2. Now they're across the start line. They're headed down into turn 1. Jimmy Shane moving up beside Kip Brown. Shane will have the advantage. He'll have lane 1 through this turn, but Brown made a great start in lane 2. In the white boat, the Spirit of Qatar. Now at the apex of the turn, and Shane takes the lead, using the short way through turn 1. That's lane 3, getting a little tight in there for Brian Perkins. Onto the backstretch now, Jimmy Shane in the 5 Graham Trucking, hoping to add another 400-point win here. Steve David is perfect on the weekend so far. 2 preliminary victories, 800 points. That's where Shane hopes to be after this heat. The 6 boats with the most points after all the prelims have been run go into the front row of the winner-take-all final. And the winner of the final will be the Columbia Cup champion. You see Kip Brown coming through turn 2 in pursuit of Jimmy Shane, followed by Brian Perkins and Greg Hopp in a good race back here for 3rd place. On board with Hopp, and here's Perkins. He has the inside on Hopp. He may be able to use that to his advantage. Jimmy Shane getting a little high right there, had to use the front wing to pedal it down, get the boat back on the water as he crossed the line to start lap 2. Into turn 1 for the second time, and Shane has opened up a nice lead now over Kip Brown, still running well in lane 2 in the Spirit of Qatar. Onto the backstretch, Jimmy Shane, the 5 Graham Trucking, hoping to make it a perfect weekend so far with 800 points, scored for 2 preliminary victories. Into turn 2 for the second time, and Shane with no problems at all. Fastest boat on the race course, has the best lane. You're not going to beat him when he has that combination. Brown continues to pursue in lane 2. On board with the leader, Jimmy Shane out of Havre de Grace, Maryland, driving for Ted Porter and family out of Decatur, Indiana. That man, Greg Hopp, is from Lake Stevens, Washington. Longtime veteran here on the Unlimited Circuit. Kip Brown in the 95 Spirit of Qatar drives for Uncle Nate Brown, and Our Gang Racing from Preston, Washington, just east of Seattle. Jimmy Shane now is on the 3rd of 3 laps. All the preliminaries are 3 laps. The final will go 5, and this race course can get rough here on the Columbia River. Half a lap to go now for Jimmy Shane in the 5 Graham Trucking. He'll pick up 400 very valuable points as he comes down to start finish for the final time. He'll take the checkered flag here in Heat 2B. Now you see the overlap he has over the second place runner. Kip Brown will bring the Spirit of Qatar down for a 300-point finish in second place. Brian Perkins is going to pick up 3rd place in that green and white 21. Greg Hopp will come by in the 14 Miss DiGiulio. Make the run down to the checkered flag in 4th place. Jimmy Shane, the winner of Heat 2B.
So here's how the points play out after the second set of heats. Steve Montgomery is with the winner of Heat 2B.
Probably makes a difference who is doing the trolling, huh?
Yeah, I mean, that might be something we try next time. You never know. I might mix it up a little bit. We'll just kind of play it as it goes.
Perfect weekend so far. Good job.
Thank you very much.
Heat 3A takes to the water when we return from Tri-Cities, Washington. Welcome back once again to the 2013 Lamb Weston Columbia Cup. As we get ready for the start of Heat 3A, Steve David and Jimmy Shane matched up in this one, and 400 points could bring Shane closer to that number one spot in the points battle.
30 seconds now to the start of Heat 3A. The first time this weekend that Jimmy Shane and Steve David have been drawn into the same heat, and Shane has won the battle for lane 1. Steve David and the old boy Alberto is going to have to come from lane 2, and you can see a lot of boats out ahead of Shane as they go through turn 2 to make the run down to the start. They have to fan out and get a little ahead because of the way that turn staggers. John Zimmerman in the 9. Fox Plumbing appears to have lane 3. Here's the start, and Shane has the lead and the inside. Greg Hopp making a great start on the outside again in the 14, Mr. Julio. We're on board with the leader, Jimmy Shane, but he has Steve David, the veteran, out of Lighthouse Point, Florida, just off to his right. And look at Hopp run the 14 down into turn 1. Gets into the rough water there on the outside. Now you're on board with the second place boat, Steve David. He was the top qualifier, but does he have the boat speed to get around Jimmy Shane, who has the inside and the lead as they go up the backstretch for the first time? A couple thousand sun-drenched fans over there, and all they see is a red and black blur as Jimmy Shane goes by at about 210 miles per hour. Into turn 2 for the first time, and you'll see Steve David right there, right on his hip, got into the rooster tail a little bit, not able to gain on Jimmy Shane, who comes down to finish lap 1 of 3 with about a half a rooster tail lead over Steve David. His main rival here for the Columbia Cup Championship and the National High Point Championship as well. They are in a very close battle for that title, and every point counts. 400 for the winner here, 300 for second place, and Shane leads it again into turn 1. Steve David gained on him a little bit right there. Any kind of a bobble by Shane in the 5-gram trucking, and David will take over the lead, but Shane is onto the backstretch. Okay, still the leader after just about a lap and a half of 3. That's the outside boat. Greg Hopp and Mr. Julio, and Shane getting a little light right there. Had to pedal it down as he accelerated. The boat got very loose. The fast guys like to run them loose. That's how they go the fastest. But Shane wants to keep it under control, keep it on the water. Up into turn 2 now for the second time. That big wall of water off the skid fin on the left side of the boat, and this is the view Steve David has. Trying to catch the youngster in front of him. Only in his second year as a full-time driver here. He is the defending champion, though, of the Columbia Cup, and Steve David has picked up a little bit of water on Jimmy Shane. Not quite as big a lead for the leader as they come down to finish lap 2 of 3. Once again, all the prelims are 3 laps. The final will go 5, and this race course will get very, very rough. Shane with 3/4 of a lap to go. You saw Steve David swinging a little bit wide, looking for a smooth path through this very, very rough turn 1. On board with John Zimmerman running 3rd in that white boat, the 9, Fox Plumbing. Greg Hopp running 5th in the 14. Off to his left, Brian Perkins is in 4th place in the 21. Onto the backstretch for the final time now. Jimmy Shane still about a half a rooster tail lead over Steve David and the old boy Alberto. He would love to keep this lead, pick up the checkered flag, the 400 points. David is going to make a run at him, but he won't be able to catch him. Jimmy Shane will take the checkered flag and the win here in 3A. Steve David and the old boy Alberto comes by in 2nd place, crosses the start-finish line, and picks up the 300 points.
So congratulations goes out to Jimmy Shane and the entire Graham Trucking team. Just over 200 points separating Jimmy Shane and Steve David now, but both will make the final.
Don't suppose you want to share your strategy for the final?
No, like I told you before, I was going to try to mix it up a little bit. I did a trolling start that time, and it worked out for us. So, you know, we might try to surprise some people in the final, what we do.
The engines are spooling up for the final, and we'll have it for you coming up next.
H1 Unlimited Hydroplane Series Racing on CBS Sports Network is brought to you by Formula Boats. You've always wanted the best Formula Boats. And by Peters & May Global Boat Transport, the world's leading boat transport provider.
high above the Columbia River. What a beautiful shot as we welcome you back to the Lamb Weston Columbia Cup. Rich Hollenberg here alongside Steve Montgomery. It's time now for the winner-take-all final heat. 6 lead boats and 1 trailer makes this a 7-boat, 5-lap final heat.
7 boats on the water for the running of the championship final heat here at the Lamb Weston Columbia Cup. The boat on the inside, Kip Brown, got by the score-up buoy too soon. He will be penalized a lap. Out ahead of him, you see Steve David. He established the 5-boat overlap. We are still scoring up. The race hasn't started yet. Jimmy Shane coming by. He'll move into lane 2, I believe. Steve David is going to have the inside here in the final heat. That's going to give him a tremendous advantage over Jimmy Shane, who will be on his right in the 5-gram trucking. Steve David slowing down now on the Oh Boy Oberto, watching his timing marks, has to get down to start finish just as the start clock hits 0-0. Here comes the field now, 6 in the front row. Steve David has the inside. Jimmy Shane right now in lane 3. He has Kip Brown in between. The red boat on the outside, that's Mark Evans in the 57 Fedco. In between the white boat, that's John Zimmerman. The bright yellow or chartreuse, that's Tom Thompson in the 11 Peters and May. On board with Kip Brown, falling back a little bit in lane 2. He's in between the rooster tails of the leaders, who are out ahead now. Jimmy Shane out in lane 3. He can move over into lane 2. He has that 7-boat overlap on Brown. He's in pursuit of our top qualifier, arguably the fastest race boat in the world here this weekend. Steve David bringing the Oh Boy Oberto through turn 2 for the first time, and Shane is right on his hip as they come down to the start-finish line to complete lap 1 of 5. It's a 5-lap final heat here. Jimmy Shane continues to pursue Steve David. The veteran out of Lighthouse Point, Florida, has been a winner here 3 times. He won this race in 2008, 9, and 10. Hasn't won it since then. This would be his 4th Columbia Cup championship. Flying the Oberto a bit as he comes across the start-finish line. He's the best there is at that, and that's how you go fast. Shane picked up a little bit of water there coming through the first turn. Used the outside, kept the RPMs up, and gained a little bit on Steve David as they turn onto the backstretch again. Rest of the field coming through the turn behind them. We're on board with Tom Thompson in the 11 Peters and May. He's back between rooster tails. Not much good water back there. This is John Zimmerman in the 9 Fox Plumbing Team Red Dot, currently 3rd on the water. A podium finish would cap a great weekend for that team. Steve David now, the Oh Boy Oberto on the backstretch into turn 2 for the 2nd time. We'll see Jimmy Shane in the 5-gram trucking right there, still right on his hip, still less than a rooster tail lead for the leader. Jimmy Shane's view as he crosses start-finish at the end of lap 2, doing everything he can to get all the speed possible out of the 5-gram trucking. He knows anything can happen here when this Columbia River race course gets rough, especially right here in this first turn. It really gets chopped up. You see the advantage that Steve David has, just about the same as the last time they came through here. But Jimmy Shane continues the pursuit as they head up the Pasco side. We're on board with Shane. He'll accelerate up over 200 miles per hour, but Steve David up ahead of him doing just the same thing. Nobody ahead of Steve David and the Oh Boy Oberto, a 6-time national high point champion. Kip Brown has fallen back now in the 95 Spirit of Qatar, and remember, he has that 1-lap penalty for the score-up problem. On board with John Zimmerman one more time. Here are the leaders coming through turn 2. They'll come down to finish lap 3, and Steve David may have expanded his lead just a bit over Jimmy Shane. Miss Madison Racing and their sponsor, the Oberto Sausage Company. They've had many great drivers race for this team in their decades of competition. None better than this one. Steve David coming down now to start lap 4. He'll have 2 to go. Still with that same lead, he rocks the boat from sponson to sponson, getting maximum speed out of the Oberto as it goes into turn 1. Again, getting very rough down there. The Columbia River tends to pile up in that turn. Jimmy Shane coming through the turn, just about the same advantage now for the leader. He is still right there. Any kind of a bobble by the leader, and this guy, Jimmy Shane, will take over the lead. On board with the leader, Steve David. He's on the Pasco, Washington side of the race course. Kennewick across the river, that's where the pit area is. Richland, just up the Columbia, a couple of miles. A great history and tradition of unlimited hydroplane racing here in the Tri-Cities. Steve David trying to win their race for the 4th time in one of the greatest careers in the history of unlimited hydroplane racing here in the USA. Down to cross the start-finish line to begin lap 5. 1 lap to go to the championship. Jimmy Shane can only keep the throttle down, continue to drive hard. You know he'll do that. If anything at all happens to the leader out front, hit one of those holes down in the first turn, slow down just a little bit, and Jimmy Shane will be right there to take the lead. But you can see he's back almost a full rooster tail now as he bounces a little bit and skips out, and Shane actually lost a little ground right there. Lost control of the boat for a moment as it got up into the air and skipped out during that big, rough first turn. Onto the backstretch with Jimmy Shane looking ahead at the leader. Half a lap to go, knowing he's probably not going to catch this guy. Steve David and the old boy Oberto on his way to the 4th Columbia Cup championship. In a great career, it'll be his 15th win for this team if he can keep it on the water for another quarter of a lap. Through the final turn for the final time, Shane still back about a rooster tail, and the checkered flag comes out. Up ahead, Jimmy Shane watches from his boat as Steve David takes the checkers. Steve David is the champion of the 2013 Lamb Weston Columbia Cup in the Oh Boy Oberto.
Just over 200 points separating Jimmy Shane and Steve David now, followed by Kip Brown in 3rd, and Steve is with our champion.
Steve, a minute before the start, it looked like they might have you out in lane 3. You came around in lane 1. What happened up at the other end?
I just made a decision. I said, guys, give me an accelerating gearbox. I'm going to try something new. And we ran them wide open all the way to the entry pin, and then I parked it down there. I knew my timing marks from the apex out, idling, and the plan just came together.
For you and Jimmy, it was all about the fight for lanes, wasn't it?
It was. Jimmy is the future. I mean, I'm almost 60, let's face it. I don't have a lot of time left in the sport. Jimmy is the future of this sport. He's a phenomenal guy, got a terrific fiance in Bianca. The team's strong behind him. So, you know, you're seeing the face of the future in him. So unlimited hydroplane racing has a bountiful future.
You'll be under the tree next year again.
I had to do that for the team. These guys deserve it. They work their butts off in this hot sun, so it just doesn't get any better than that for my team.
Congratulations on another win and a great career.
Thanks, Steve.
Steve David and Oh Boy Oberto hold on to the lead in the national high points, but not by much. The H1 Unlimited Hydroplane Series moves to Seattle, Washington next for the 6th stop on the series. For Steve Montgomery and our entire crew, I'm Rich Hollenberg. For scores, highlights, features, and more, go to cbssports.com. This has been a presentation of CBS Sports Network, the 24-hour home of CBS Sports. See you next time from Seattle.